Welcome back to my channel, guys, and greetings from Istanbul, Turkey. Now, if you missed my last video on gay travel here in Istanbul, I'll link to it up here somewhere in case you want to watch that first and get some context. But this video specifically will be about my experience here, my pretty gnarly experience, once in a lifetime experience, first time experience going to a men's only Turkish bathhouse. And I'll let you fill in, the gaps of what that implies here. It's a wild story, so grab your popcorn and buckle up because you're in for a ride. You may have heard of Turkish hamams or Turkish bathhouses. It's a thing culturally. In fact, I've only ever been to one Turkish bathhouse before, but it wasn't even in Turkey. It was in Miami, Florida. So I don't know how authentic, that can really be, but it's such a thing culturally that you'll find them globally inspired by the Turkish version, inspired by true Turkish hammams and bathhouses. So it's a thing culturally. I'm not sure how, why it became a thing in Turkish culture. From the research that I've done, it actually dates back to the Roman Empire and then the Ottomans, who are the ancestors basically of modern Turkey. The Ottomans adapted it into their own version. I will say that in Turkish culture, hospitality is a huge thing. So that's definitely a part of it. I think that when you go to these places, there's a ritual around how you're sort of pampered and taken care of with the towels that, they give you cologne at the end. Like, it's a whole process. And so I think between the history and that cultural element of hospitality, it became a phenomenon, this idea of Turkish hammams and Turkish bathhouses. But here's the thing. There's two kinds of Turkish hammams. Okay, there's the traditional ones that I kind of like what I just described. There's some really nice high-end polished ones, just like spas, same idea. You have really nice ones where you pay up and they really take care of you. You're pampered, you relax. Oftentimes these are co-ed, so men have their own section, women have their own section. And then you have men's only hammams, which is essentially code. From my research, observation, and everything, it's basically a gay bathhouse. I've never been to a gay bathhouse before. It's not my thing. In fact, I remember passing one last summer in France, and I just get I don't know, prudish about these things. Always had this assumption that the people there are kind of creepy, kind of like being at a gay bar at 3 a.m. It's like last call. It's the people sort of desperately looking for action. And it's also very vulnerable, right? You're mostly naked and you're in this environment only, with men, and it's just never been something appealing to me. But I have a friend who swears by them and who told me that anytime he travels internationally, he wants to check them out. Worst case, you get a nice normal massage, you relax in the steam room. But if you want, you can hang out with people. And he told me when you go to Istanbul, you have to go to one because it's a thing culturally, right? The Turkish hammam, but to see the men's only version, hint, hint, is worth a try. So I'm here in Istanbul. I got curious. I did want a hammam experience, but between the two options, I'm like, I kind of want to see the men's only. I kind of want to see what the fuss is about. And let's face it, at this point, my channel is borderline investigative reporting. So I had to report and come back to you guys to share my findings. Let me start by saying that you have to do your research. You have to know what you're looking for and make sure you're going to a place that has what you are or are not looking for. But if you do your research here in Istanbul, you'll find that there's a handful of these men's only hammams. But there's a discretion here in the culture. Turkey is not a place where it's illegal to be gay, but it very much is taboo. So you just have to be mindful of all these things. And if you look for this, if you do your research, you'll find what you're seeking. But I will say it was very interesting to look at the Google reviews to determine what kind of hammams these are. There's a lot of ambiguity that people purposefully will leave in their comments. For example, with the one that I ended up going to, there were comments like, great place, great services, and it's gay friendly. You can meet people who want to do the same things you want to do. They would say it in a way that's sort of more discreet, but trying to leave the impression of again, this is a gay friendly place. So of course, I just happened to coincidentally stay at a hotel that's in walking distance of 5 of these places. And I'm in the Beyoğlu neighborhood, by the way. Beyoğlu is kind of like the fun, trendy, youthful, also very touristy neighborhood of Istanbul. And if there had to be a gay neighborhood, which there isn't really one here in Istanbul because it's not that open publicly to, you know, being LGBT friendly. But if there had to be one neighborhood, I would say it is this neighborhood, Beyoğlu, just because it is so um, youthful and trendy with bars and restaurants. And again, this is where the hotspots are in terms of nightlife, clubs, bars, and these men's only saunas. So again, important to do your research. A few of the places that I looked up had red flag comments about, or red flag reviews rather, about how like it's really only a place for escorts if that's what you're seeking. There's like hustlers at some of these places. The one that I went to had really had the best reviews and the most sort of genuine reviews of like this is a true men's only hammam. I was going to mention the place by name, and I was actually going to share a picture as well to show how discreet these places are, that it's really like a hole in the wall, so easy to miss. In fact, I did miss it and I had to come back and follow the map on Google Maps, but I decided not to share it in this video. Again, if you come here and you do your research, you will find it very easily. But I I thought about it and I realized if discretion is a part of the culture here, I don't want to like out the business in this way. Again, you can read in between the lines from the Google reviews and the reviews you find online. But with discretion being a part of the culture here, and I also read after I went to this hammam, to this bathhouse, I read that years ago it was raided under the suspicion of prostitution. I didn't see any prostitution there for what it's worth. And that article said that a lot of people in Turkey actually, or in Istanbul, thought that it was really not about a prostitution raid, but more about trying to scare the local gay community. So I just would rather not mention the business. Again, do your research and you'll find it if you're in Istanbul and looking for this place. So as I mentioned, I missed it the first time. From the outside, very dingy, not at all the type of thing that I would walk down the street, see, and be like, oh, I should walk in here spontaneously. Like I only went because I did my research and the reviews were mostly great, about like four out of 5 stars. You guys, walking in was like a different universe. Like you would never think that inside there's this entire hammam, this entire bathhouse that from the outside just looks like such a dingy little hole in the wall. So I walk in, and I should say, by the way, I was very nervous because I didn't know what to expect. And I had the whole thing in my head about like, the escorts at the other place. And I just thought, am I going to get hustled? Like, what is this? But also you're curious, right? So I wanted to see what this is all about. So you come in and there's all these changing rooms. And so this guy approaches me and he goes, hey, welcome. And he gives me a key to the changing room. And essentially that becomes like your locker, your personal locker, which is really nice that you have more than literally just a locker like at a spa. I've been to some very high-end spas where all you get is a little tiny locker for your clothes. This is like you get your own changing room. You keep your items there and then you lock the door and they lead you to the facilities. In that sort of waiting room, for whatever reason, there were men just like sitting there hanging out. Also doesn't help with the nerves that they're just staring at everybody who comes in. Always important to be very intentional and clear, because this guy, who was very friendly, the guy working there, he didn't say, would you like a massage? Or what are you looking for? Or it wasn't a question. He was like, okay, so you're going to go in for 10 minutes and, rinse off and then come back for your massage. And so I purposely said, no, 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 I'm good. I just want general entrance, because I knew that any of these other services, like getting a massage, or what they call appealing in hammam culture, they, I guess, like, peel off dead skin, that costs extra. And I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to go check out this hammam. So I found that very interesting that he sort of implied it already, like, oh, you're going to get a massage, because obviously that's how they get people to spend more money. So I walk in and I have to admit, like, my knees are kind of buckling because I'm just like, what is happening? Again, it's men only. And everybody was staring. I don't know if everybody stares at everybody. I think it is sort of that way because, again, most of the guys there are curious about other guys, so it's natural. It's sort of like going to a gay bar, but the difference here is you have nothing on but a towel, no underwear, no bathing suit. You're just walking around mostly naked, in a towel. And I have to say, I was blown away by the premises. Like, I would have never thought walking in that this is what was awaiting me. Marble floors, this huge dome above where sunlight was shining through. And everywhere you have these little sinks with bowls sitting in them so that you can rinse off basically and throw some water over your head. Turns out this place has been around since the 1400s. So it does hail back to the Ottoman Empire. And that's why the architecture is so specific, and I guess modern isn't the right word since it's back from the, Ottoman era, but just so carefully designed as a true hammam, like built to be a hammam, a bathhouse. Even looking at the ground, the details of these like mini like channels of water passing through. So something I noticed was that there were no drains, like sewer drains. It's really all just redirecting water, you know, wasted water from showers and stuff down these little narrow channels to all go presumably to one sewage drain somewhere, but just designed so craftfully and so intelligently. I was really impressed by all of that. Leave it to me to like, you're in a bathhouse, most people are looking to get action, and I'm like marveling at the architecture. So a lot of men are just sitting there kind of hanging out. Some of them are chatting. There were all kinds of men there. I would say half of them were around my age, 30 something, maybe even a few, maybe 20 something. And then the rest, I would say, were more like 50 something. All kinds of body types and sizes. Some guys were, I would say, definitely attractive, but the average guy there was everyday average guy walking down the street. Interestingly, I think I maybe saw one like twink, but the rest of the guys were like traditionally masculine guys. So I keep walking, and there's multiple rooms like this with the marble floors and the sinks. And then eventually I stumble upon the sauna and the steam room. When I walk into the steam room, these two guys sit on either side of me. They come in together. One's younger, one's older. And the older one says, "Do you speak English?" In Turkish. He's saying this. I'm half Turkish. I speak Turkish. I thought he was talking to the younger guy because they came in together. And it's dimly lit in there, by the way, in the steam room, and there's steam, obviously. So I can't fully see where this guy's looking, but I was convinced he was talking to the other guy. So I don't say anything. And then the younger guy starts talking to me in English. And I tell him, yeah, I'm visiting from Miami and so on. And the older guy says in Turkish, of course, they don't learn our language, but we have to learn English for them. And that's when I realized he was talking to me, earlier, trying to get my attention. And I go, without missing a beat in Turkish, I go, "I speak Turkish too." And so they all laugh. Everybody in the steam room laughs. And the older guy wasn't reading the room that I was not interested. B, I'm still kind of like on edge. And also, they had said something in Turkish before I established I also speak Turkish. The older guy had said something like, maybe we can get something going with him, meaning me. And I just got uncomfortable, and I got, again, I'm still kind of like frazzled trying to figure out this place. I step out and I go back to where the sinks are. And I, just hang out there for a second. A few minutes later, I go back to the steam room, and there's a whole different cast of characters in there. And this guy sits next to me who, from his like silhouette, because again, I can't see very well in the steam room, he seemed like an attractive guy, and he was friendly, and he's like, "Where are you from?" And then he just puts his hand on my leg. And at first I'm okay with it, but then he got very handsy. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't really, we're like, I've never been to this kind of place, whatever." And he's like, "Well, come with me then." We leave the steam room, and now it's, we're under like bright lights. And I realize I'm not attracted to him at all, but I also don't want to make him feel bad. So I did the prudish sort of shy coy thing of like, "Oh, I'm not really ready for this. Like, it's my first time at, experiencing this. I'm not ready, blah, blah, blah." He got the memo. I keep strolling around. You guys, the next time I go to the steam room, there is action happening. Everybody there, I think it was like 5 people, they have their towels open. They either have their towels open and they're playing with themselves, or they're playing with each other. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it's going down. Like it's just happening. I sit next to this guy who I haven't seen before, and I make conversation. I think out of nervousness, I'm like, he's the only other person who's not participating. Turns out he's visiting from Canada, and tall, seemingly good looking. Again, I just see the silhouette. And he tells me that when he comes to Istanbul, which is pretty often, he likes to come to these places just to observe. He doesn't really like to participate when there's other people around. It makes him uncomfortable, but he's curious and likes to observe. And he's very nice. So we strike up a conversation. And then he goes, well, would you like to go check out the sauna with me? First, we exit the steam room. And now I see what he really looks like. And it's so interesting that you get an idea in the darkness, right? But you don't really know. I thought he was this tall, lanky, white guy, partially because he said he was from Canada, but also just his body type, like seeing the silhouette of him. And now that we're out, in the light, he was ethnically ambiguous and he could be any background. And he told me he was from Azerbaijan culturally, like his heritage is Azerbaijani, which is a small country right next to Turkey, pretty similar culturally, even the language linguistically very similar to Turkish. But it was just so funny to me that like I pictured him looking a certain way and he didn't look like that at all. But really beautiful guy, really handsome guy. And I'm just curious about this Canadian guy who's like, come with me to the sauna. So we go to the sauna and it's just him and I. We start kissing and touching. I don't kiss and tell, although I guess I just did. I did kiss and tell just now, but I enjoyed his company. He enjoyed my company. Anytime the door swung open, we got nervous and frazzled, but it was nice to meet somebody like-minded who was just as, I don't know, innocent, careful, diligent. Truth be told, I had my fun with him and I was satisfied. And I also thought it was peculiar that the only guy I connected with out of, I would say, a rotating door of probably 30 at least men who I saw come in and out of this place, he was the one person I sort of connected with where I felt safe, dare I say, as corny as that sounds. And it's just funny how in these sort of primitive environments where people are just kind of on the hunt, it's funny how you still magnetically connect with people who are like-minded. Hung out a little bit longer at this bathhouse and then went on my way, showered. Again, it's very ritualistic. So once you leave the facilities, they cover you in towels, like a bunch of towels for every part of your body, throw some cologne on you. They send you off to your changing room to get your items, and that's it. Paid on my way out and left. And on my way out, I thought that was an interesting connection with that guy. Like this is you're visiting, like I'm not emotionally invested, but I was like that. I feel kind of bad that like, this was a one-time thing. Like I won't stay in touch with this guy. And as I walk out and I'm thinking about this, he steps out around the same time. And I was checking something on my phone. So I was like, oh, hey. And he's like, hey, nice meeting you. And he walks off. He walks about a block and I'm, behind him sort of observing like, oh, should I say something? Like, should I reapproach him? No, like whatever, one-time thing. And I see him stop, with hesitation. And he does one of these things like, and he turns around and he walks all the way back up to me and goes, hey, do you want to grab a beer? And I was like, sure. So he's like, come on, I'm going to show you this kind of tucked away place. And he brought me to this place that I did not know existed. There's a main road in Istanbul, which is very industrial and kind of unpleasant to walk by. You just have cars speeding by. It's just like an ugly street. But he's like, look, you see there, we're going to go there behind the buildings. And he takes me on that hideous avenue behind a building. And suddenly we're like in a different world. And it was this really charming, tucked away couple of streets that lead straight to the water, to the Bosphorus, with a killer view. And we had 2 beers and we just talked. And it was so refreshing and such a unique thing as well to meet somebody at a bathhouse and then you actually hang out and you enjoy their company. I had a great time with this guy, just a total stranger, right? that I met at a bathhouse. And now we're having 2 beers talking about where we're from and our lives. And he was telling me more also about this bathhouse. He's the one that made me realize it was from the 1400s. I hadn't even noticed that on the outside of the building, it says that it's been around since 14 something. And he was telling me that must be how they keep it so hygienic. The fact that it's all marble floor, like this was designed in mind, before they had more modern technology and cleaning supplies. Like this is old school. And the fact that it's a men's only bathhouse, we were saying like, maybe, presumably, it's always been a meeting place for gay men, or at least men who want to explore with other men. There are definitely men in there who are probably married or have girlfriends, but this is something they kind of do on the side. Like they might not even think of themselves as gay, but this is something they like to engage in. The guy I was having a drink with was like, there's no way it's suddenly flipped to being a gay friendly or, a gay bathhouse. It must have always been this way. And it's like a don't ask, don't tell thing. Maybe mainstream society doesn't know when they walk by this place. Now, of course, with Google, with the internet, you can find out this information. But again, had I not known that that place was what it was, I would have just thought it was some regular hole in the wall hammam. After having drinks with this guy, we parted ways, but we did stay in touch. And it was the perfect ending to this, again, situation that at first had me very nervous and on edge, not knowing what to expect. But I thought, like, what are the chances? Like, how cinematic is that I have this unique, once in a lifetime experience, and then I meet a really nice guy out of it who seemed to be the only other guy there similar to me in terms of like, certain sensitivities and cautiousness. Uh, I just thought it was such like a sweet way to end that experience, to have this guy kind of show me a few different parts of Istanbul and really connect versus leaving, this intimate experience there at this bathhouse. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever been to a men's only bathhouse? Have you ever been to a Turkish hammam? Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Can't wait to hear them. And I'll catch you next time with my next travel video to Morocco.